But my key quote is, the key to success is resilience, and the key to resilience are options.
Welcome to Community Connectors, Felton Thomas. Really appreciate you joining us today.
No problem, John. Good to be here.
Yeah, great. So, please correct me if I say any of this wrong, but so you are the executive director and CEO of the Cleveland Public Library. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, wonderful. And looking through your resume and articles written about you, I mean, you have a long history of improving libraries and, quite frankly, improving communities. So, thank you for joining me. And could you just please tell our audience a little bit about the Cleveland Public Library?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate to be able to be a part of this organization. Around since 1869, Cleveland Public Library has been known from almost that point in time as the People's University. So we see ourselves as the great equalizer, the space where everyone from all walks of life, 383 GED, PhD, can come in and be able to share all of the things that this great city has to offer.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And how long have you been with the Cleveland Public Library?
So I've now been with Cleveland 17 years.
17 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, so I was looking through your history a little bit, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong. Google makes mistakes, but
Yeah.
it said that you started working at a public library at the age of 13. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I often tell the story of how I believe sometimes that libraries saved my life.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And one of the, the more challenged areas of Las Vegas, the poorest areas in Las Vegas. And so the only things that wasn't burned out in our neighborhood was the churches and the library.
Yeah.
Right. And so me and my friends every day would get out of school and we'd go and we play sports and we started hanging out on this one street. And then I noticed that our friends were actually starting to go and like talk with the folks who were at the drug house in the street. And like was wondering what was happening. And then I realized when they came over and offered me some money that they were actually serving as lookouts. And I was like, I can't be a part of this, right? This is
Yeah.
not going to end well. And so I stopped when we get off the bus. Every day we'd pass the library. So I just tell them I had to stop and do homework. And I just started going there every day for a few months until the children's librarian noticed me, said, "You're here every day. You should work here."
Yeah.
And so I was in high school, but I was actually young for my age. I was 13 and she didn't know that. So I was the youngest person to ever work for the Las Vegas County Library District because I wasn't actually of age. But they were like, just don't tell anyone. So I made it to my 14th birthday and eventually, just worked my way up that system there.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And yeah, I see. So you were a branch manager in Las Vegas for a time as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did all aspects of the organization, doing shelving books, putting ultimately, working at the circ desk, then reference, then becoming a librarian, and then a manager, then a regional manager. And, I just assumed I would one day hopefully become the director in the library. And then I got a call from Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, and I saw too. Were you the president of the Nevada Library Association at one point as well? Is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I got involved in associations, got involved in libraries and the thoughts of like how libraries could have more of an effect on people's lives. Yeah,
Wonderful.
it was a, I, for many years, never really thought I was going to be a librarian, right? I worked all the way up. I got my degree, uh, originally in psychology. My overall thought was I was going to become a sports psychologist.
Okay.
And so I got my undergraduate at UNLV while I was still working as in libraries, and I got, the director came to me and he said, "Felton, you're like our baby. We grown up in this. Everybody loves you. we'll pay for you to go to library school. And, you'll come back and you can be, work here as a manager. And I was like, well, I don't really know if I want to be a librarian. So they finally gave me the list of places I could go. And on the bottom of the list was the University of Hawaii. I said,
Yeah.
you pay for me to go to University of Hawaii? They said it's accredited. I was like, goodbye.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's wonderful.
that's where I ended up going. It was the best decision I ever made. I ended up getting the degree. I met my wife there in Hawaii. I came back. I went back to being the a manager at the library that I grew up in,
It's wonderful.
right?
Yeah.
And then really that was the eye opener to really for me to focus on like giving back, that I could really be a difference. And there was this one moment in which I received a letter from a young man. He said, you may not know, but you've been like my role model, right? And I saw how you went away and you came back to this community. I'm away now being a teacher. I'm getting my degree to be a teacher, and I want to come back to the neighborhood just like you did to make sure we give back to this neighborhood and turn it around. And it was just an eye opener. It just said to me, like there was more that I could do as a librarian than just be someone who is making sure that the transactions day to day happen, that libraries can be transformational. And so that's where I started focusing on.
Yeah, and I really wanna, ask you about that too, 'cause I don't wanna jump the gun, but yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that's happened at the Cleveland Public Library in particular since you've taken over, I mean, it's just really fascinating. So, I did wanna ask too, so, and this kinda goes in line with what you were just saying, um, is it correct to say that again, libraries have been kind of your life's work, but you're also on the board of it? Is it the Cleveland Museum of Art and United Way in Greater Cleveland? And so one, do you sleep? Is that, like, and then two, why do you choose to be involved? Like, not every, a lot of people do just kind of, hey, this is a job and I work this and this, but even outside of what would be your profession, I mean, you're heavily involved in the community. Well, why do you do that? Why do you choose to do that?
I think it's really important for folks to understand that as the library director, it's much more than about libraries. It's about communities, right? So libraries, I think folks get caught up many times and when they think about libraries, it's just big warehouses for books, and that these books that are provided them or the information that are provided to them is the only format in which we work in. And the truth is that I think all along libraries that should be seen as this transformational space. And a lot of different formats for learning are available in those spaces, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is the ability for folks to be able to see maps or photographs. We have over 1.3 million photographs here at the Cleveland Public Library. We have over 170,000 maps of the area here, right? All of these things are different formats. The format that tends to be the best format currently for people to learn are programs. So we provide lots of different programs that are available here. And so the answer to your question is I need to be able to meet with folks from different aspects of the city to be able to provide the best programs for our community, right?
Yeah.
I need to be able to then work with folks in our community at our Museum of Art to make sure that our community is able to get the most inclusive arts and culture organization, the Cleveland Public Library, to have access for them to be able to see things they would never be able to see before,
Yeah.
right? And so that's how I see the library is it's our bridge for many folks who don't have access to these great things that are happening. And by like being on the board of United Way, I get access to many of these CEOs who are helping to do the work, which is the most important thing, which is to make sure that we are helping to make Cleveland a better place to live.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And yeah, I wanted to ask just a little bit about that. Some of the transformation and improvements that have happened since you've been director of the Cleveland Public Library. So, I mean, obviously, it's very highly rated, and I believe like Library Journal gave it like a top rated and a 5 stars, but I think I saw something that were you involved in, or you began like a renovation or rebuild of almost all of the 27 library systems in
Yeah,
Cleveland?
no, we're currently
Is that
that's
correct?
our facilities master plan that we're
Okay.
doing right now.
You're doing that now.
These 11 buildings, we're going to renovate every one of them.
Wow.
The last time there was a big renovation plan in Cleveland was in 1985. So we went to our community and said, we know you love our people. We know you love, the collections we have, but you have told us that these buildings that you walk into could be better. And
Okay.
so we'd ask that you would help us by passing a levy, and they did to the tune of 70%.
Yeah.
And so since then, we started on a campaign in 2017 to build, uh, basically rebuild or renovate every one of our buildings. And so we just opened up building number 12, and we've got 15 more to go. And we're just working on that. We're going to have two more opening up in early 27. So we're on the move.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I mean, and again, it seems like Cleveland Public Libraries, I mean, they are, well loved, well funded. Could you talk about some of the challenges that have taken place, or some of the challenges in making changes at the Cleveland Public Library? I mean, anyone who's been in a leadership role knows that, it's not all smooth sailing. The end result might look great,
No,
but
no,
it
never and
can
never.
it can get in the weeds. What kind of problems did you run into as you were trying to make some of these changes at
So I'll start from the very beginning.
Sure.
When I arrived here in 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
in the midst of the Great Recession that
Yeah.
happened and finances, we our original budget was 72 million. By the time I had been here like 3 weeks, the budget was going to be $53 million. And so
Wow.
we knew that we had to reshape what we were thinking of. Not only that, but we had to I had a different kind of vision for how we were going to move forward as an organization from the organization that we were at that point in time. Right at that point in time, libraries were starting to make that transition from being this place of transaction to a base place of transformation. And it was a very challenging space for folks to be in. I remember one of the things that we needed to do, especially at that time, was to work on finding ways to provide our children food. And so our children's librarians would come to me and say, right, I'm buying candy bars and things of that nature, because when I come to work, the kids are coming after school and they're all hungry. They need food.
Yeah.
And so we started having conversations with the food bank, and the food bank was saying we have this program where we could bring out lunches to folks. And initially, while many of our staff thought it was a great idea, many of our librarians and folks did not. They were like, one children's librarian turned to me and said, "I didn't go to library school to be a lunch lady."
Yeah.
Right. And so it was, how do we get them to understand the importance of providing this and feeding the need for these young people who could not concentrate and focus because they were hungry. So we started doing that, and eventually we were averaging about 200,000 meals a year that we were providing in our libraries.
Wow.
And it was, kind of, ultimately we had a strategic planning process, and we sat with our staff. And one of the things, we went through a list of all of the initiatives and things that we do, and that was rated the most important thing that we did, which was to provide those lunches for the children for after school.
Yeah,
So
I wish I could say that, in speaking with librarians across the country, that your story was unique, but unfortunately, it's not. We hear that quite a bit about, people are like, they're trying to read and they're putting their head down because they're hungry and they haven't eaten in a day, and so wonderful work. I mean, and also, this is kind of the biggest question that I wanted to ask you, because we speak with a lot of people who run libraries and community spaces and parks, and they're trying to make change. They're trying to make their communities better. They're trying to have a positive impact. Um, you've actually done it, right? So I think the real question is, how did you do it? Right. So, I mean, changing things like, getting everyone on board and bringing in something like a food bank, or, even raising the funds and, passing bills and things like that to get funding to have, kind of a nicer public space. Um, that's not obvious. What would you say were some of the biggest things that had the ability to make that change? How were you able to make that change?
Well, I mean, I think there was a number of things that we started off with when I first got here.
Yeah.
One, the library had a very good reputation. And I said, the number one thing we have to do is make sure that reputation stands and that we are seen as still that beacon for folks as they are looking for a way to make themselves better. However, it was reputation, but it wasn't by use. And so what we had to do was figure out what are the ways that we can bring people into the community, bring them into the libraries for things that maybe they didn't think that we might naturally have,
Yeah.
uh, but would be of great benefit to them,
Hmm.
right? And so we started looking at a variety of things around technology because technology was at that point in time becoming the divider
Hmm.
within the community. Folks needed to be able to come to libraries to be able to apply for jobs because now every job application was being done online.
Yep.
And we quickly found that 40% of the people who were using our library for computers and technology were using it for employment.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out, okay, if we're going to do that, how can we do that to the best of our ability? And how can we partner with other agencies like Ohio Means Jobs here in Cleveland to help come in and provide spaces where people could actually apply for jobs, not just go and fill out applications. So we started a whole workforce development process and programs around workforce development because that was initially one of our most important things that we were doing it with our strategic plan.
I mean, that's wonderful. And there's kind of a couple of directions I want to go in this, but I want to make sure I ask them in the right order. So, you mentioned, adding technology and getting people from the community kind of into the space. And I guess, sometimes I hear that as a chicken and egg problem, so did the how can I say, did the resources come first? Did you get the technology first? Or did you get the people in the building first? Or did you kind of do it together? Could you talk a little bit about
Yeah, it
that?
was a little of both, right?
Okay.
So let me an example. When I got here, we had about 250 computers. They
Okay.
were always being used, and folks were using them. But the level of strength around technology amongst our staff wasn't at the level that it needed to be.
Sure.
People were able to get a little bit of assistance from a few staff members, but the majority weren't able to provide them with what they needed.
Yeah.
And what we recognized we needed to do was not only build a spaces that had technology for all of our communities and the branches, but also build a space in which folks who could go to another level could go to another level.
Yeah.
And so right away, we started working on increasing the number of computers. So within 4 years, we had changed that from 250 to 1,000 computers that were available for folks,
Mhm.
and that we built our makerspace tech called Tech Central that still exists today, in which folks would come in and learn how to do laser engraving and 3D printing, T-shirt making, and all of these things that could take them into some of the other things. And we started seeing people come here, start their own businesses,
Yeah.
do those type of things for that level. But people who were at the basic level, who just needed to get an email address or do all of that, there was availability of computers. They weren't sitting there waiting until something came open. Now they had all of that available to them.
That's great. That's great. And did the word kind of spread within the community, or did you, promote it, or how did
We did, that's very good question because we never really promoted the fact that we had all these more computers. It just the numbers just kept
Word
coming,
of mouth.
right? People
Yeah.
just kept coming, and they knew they needed it, and they just kept coming by to be able to get access to the technology that was available to them, right?
That's yeah. That's wonderful. And just related to that, did you also have programs, kind of like training programs and things like that at the same
Yeah.
time that the new resources were available? Or
So there was is a couple of things that we knew we needed to do.
yeah,
One, we needed to hire more staff members that were going to be tied to technology.
yeah,
And so we changed some of the requirements for folks who were going to be doing that work. Also, making sure that folks who might be adjacent to that work had the training to be able to do that work. And and then we made sure that our community knew that they were going to have folks who would be able to help them and assist them in the technology that they learn, and start doing, classes around Word and all of the Microsoft Suite and all of those, so that all of that kind of fell in line together.
yeah. I mean, sounds like you're saying there was not one thing. It was kind of like, you have to have the staff and you have to have the resource, and you have to have the staff that knows how the resource works, and potentially like a program or a training that tells people about the resource, but also it's like, here's your introduction to it. Here's your first step to it or something.
Yeah,
Is
no,
that kind of what I'm hearing?
absolutely.
Okay.
And once you start doing that, you can build off of that. Then you can start checking out Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
Wi-Fi hotspots and things
Sure.
of that nature. That just takes the technology and availability of technology to a whole different level.
Once they already know how to use it,
Yeah.
then they can go a little bit more on their own and independently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, one thing, just when it comes to programs and events, and I see what's happening at the Cleveland Public Library, like on the website and everything. I mean, I think it was just October 2nd. I did not count, but there were so many different types of programs happening every single day. One thing that I've just found in having these conversations is, um, sometimes spaces tend to have a focus of either having events that are for the people that already come to the library, right? To where, hey, you're already here, and this we want you to learn more. And sometimes places really have more of a focus on, well, let's get people that don't know the library kind of into the door, something that's a little bit more basic. Could you talk about, I mean, does the Cleveland Public Library have a focus on one or the other, or tend to spend more time on one or the other? Just your thoughts on that.
I always talk to our staff about the fact that we always have to be yes
Okay.
and so we know we have a great group of folks who love the Cleveland Public Library and use us consistently. Most libraries do,
Yeah.
right? But we're always trying to find those folks who don't necessarily come into our libraries, and why that is.
Yeah.
And so one of the best letters from a patron I ever received was, we did a Superman experience. Superman's from Cleveland.
Okay.
It was kind of the opening around the weekend, the opening of the movie here. And so we did a big Superman experience. We had a lot of the different authors of the different comic books and things of that nature who came in, and like a Comic-Con, they're all signing, things for people. And I got a letter from someone who drove from Cincinnati here, 4 hours to get here,
Uh-huh.
right, to be a part of this, and said, like, this was the best experience. And they hadn't, right, they got home, and they, like, in their mind, they were thinking through the letter they were going to write to me to tell me what a great experience this was, and how they would never have been able to do this at one of the other Comic Cons because it's just too big. They were able to meet some of their heroes and things of that nature here. And so it's events like that you wouldn't expect the library to do. Or recently, we just had, like, last month, we had Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
We did a partnership with the Rock Hall and had Pat Benatar, who had actually written a children's book, and so that matched up.
Yeah.
But everybody came to see Pat Benatar. They didn't
Yeah.
come because she had written the children's book.
Yeah.
Right. And so to have, it's programs like that to bring people generally who don't come into the libraries in. But what you want to show and tell them is that the library can be relevant in your lives, even if you don't historically want to use some of the things we might have in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Let me ask you this one. So, another thing that has come up is, you know, sometimes it's about getting the resources in place that the having the computers and having the technology or having the space to read or what might be there. Um, and other places a little bit more like we really want you here to join a group or to be a member of the community. Could you just in your opinion, um, what is kind of the value or what is the importance of having the good resources, but also of having like kind of that community feel to where people, feel like when they come in, they feel like they're a community or they make a friend and then they keep coming back. What are your thoughts kind of on that?
Yeah, so I think it's matched, right? I mean, I think those two things are matched.
Okay.
Folks are coming to a space, as someone has said, because they want to be intellectually challenged,
Okay.
but not necessarily intellectually challenged by what's on shelves, but by the fact that they're in a space in which other folks who want to be intellectually challenged are walking around. And
Yeah.
maybe you're going to end up having a conversation with them that takes you to another level of knowledge or say something of that nature. So I'll give you a classic example. We have a sports research center,
Okay.
right? Which folks would not know, but Clinton Public Library has the second most items on baseball everywhere other than Cooperstown, right?
Wow.
So we have all these, you know, we have our Cleveland Guardians here, and we have and we've collected all of these things on sports. And so it's one of those things that while folks are when they come to the Sports Resource Center, they want to be around folks who have that same kind of intellectual want around baseball so that they can just have conversations. They can talk to someone. They can talk about some of the things that are going on or whatever. Or they can just work on their fantasy baseball team, right? Who knows? But I mean, the idea is that's one of the great, purposes of libraries is to convene people in a living room type setting where they can speak or they can't. And that's kind of how libraries have transformed themselves. Beforehand, it'd be in a quiet space, huddled
Yeah.
together, and now we're trying to change that so that it is more of a space where folks can learn from each other.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And yeah, you've been using that term and I've seen that. So it's the People's University. That's kind of it sounds like you're trying to make sure that the entire place kind of lives up to that ethos, right? So it's, learning and challenging independently for everyone, but also together because that's also part of the university. So that's great. Um yeah, so one thing with our shows that there's this question I always like to ask, which is our program's really trying to help people who are community builders, people who are trying to, get people, I like to say kind of off the couch, off the phone, and into a space and meeting people. So, what in the year 2025, you've been doing this for a while, so you have a lot of experience in it. What do you think it takes to run a successful community space today?
So I mean, I think one of the I tell folks all the time on my staff, probably to the point that they're tired of hearing me say this, but my key quote is the key to success is resilience, and the key to resilience are options, right? And
Yeah.
so success is built about being resilient. There are going to be times like when I came in 2000, early 2009, and you're dealing with, just chaos around you financially
Mhm.
through periods of up and down, COVID, all of these things that have happened, and the world has kind of gone into many different places. But as a leader, you must be resilient, and to be resilient, you must create a series of options for your organization to be able to find different ways and paths to being successful,
Yeah.
right? And I think um, folks who when they talk to me about it and to say how am I going to I'm a lot of folks that I talk to, especially young librarians, say they don't want to become a director any longer, right? They don't want to go on that path because they just see how difficult and challenging it is, right? And I said, it can be, but it is about how prepared you are to kind of move forward, right? if you believe that you have what it takes to help move a library system along, there's an obligation on your part to do that instead of sit in the background and comment about how you don't like this or you don't like that.
Yeah.
Now, that was one of my first, directors who, when I was thinking about becoming a library director, he said to me, right, you have all these ideas. I'm not going anywhere. You're probably going to have to go somewhere to put those ideas in place. Right.
That's wonderful. That's what, and I actually I meant to ask about that too. So, and I think it was an article I was reading about you. So, the term holistic community view came up in this article. Could you talk a little bit about that? Is that a view that you share? Because you were kind of saying earlier that, again, the library is not just a repository for books, obviously, and has a lot of things happening, but you're going even beyond that, it seems. Could you talk a little bit about that holistic
Yeah,
community view?
I'll take it from kind of Cleveland's standpoint,
Yeah.
right? Cleveland's on the list of many things they don't want to be the list on. Second highest poverty level, first for children, third as far as access to internet access, and all of the lists you don't want to be in. Now they're on that list. On the other side of it, Cleveland has some of the greatest institutions in the cultural world, right? Whether it's our Museum of Art, we have the second largest community of theater outside of New York, right? Great orchestra, great library. All of these things are available to folks at Cleveland. And because of the initial kind of rose kind of Rockefeller times and Carnegie times, there's a lot of wealth in the city of Cleveland. So when you look at Cleveland, you can't look at it in one way. You have to look at it holistically, that there are many different pieces to this. And this is a great place to live and a great place to, to provide services and a great place to work with our community in. And if we all focus together from a holistic view, we can pull everybody up, right? And so as a library, we can't just focus on one group or the other. We have to focus on everyone.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it sounds like you're saying that goes back to, one of the reasons you're on some of these boards of like a museum of art and, United Way. And so, I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Okay. And, so this is one of my favorite, which is just okay. So today, what do you think it takes to get people off of the couch, off their phone, and into a community space and actually meeting other humans? What do you think that takes? What do you think it takes today to have somebody do that?
I think it takes being able to see people where they are,
Yeah,
right? I mean, we have many different types of community members, and they're not all, I mean, it used to be everybody, if you had like kind of different types of folks. Maybe there was 10 or 12 or 14 or whatever, and you could like pigeonhole everyone. But
yeah,
today there's so many different types of things that people are into and want to do. And you have to be willing to see them in that place and say, right, I see you, and I think we can provide something that's going to get you off the couch and into one of our libraries to be able to experience things, right? I always talk like my daughters. I have, they're older now. They're 28 and 25. But when they were younger, I talked to them consistently about what are the things that would the young people wanted to do. And some of them were the things that they had kind of grown up in. But some of them were like, right, we love K-pop. What are you guys doing about K-pop? What are you doing around all these other things, whatever? And so you like, okay, let's do a K-pop class. Let's do this or that, right? And so you always have to be saying to folks, um, we can provide you something that is of interest, and we want you to then help us make that better,
yeah.
right? Because our K-pop class is not going to be very good, but we're going to get people who can help us make them even better.
I like that. You're saying it's not just a consumption or being related to what they're already interested in, but you're kind of challenging them a little bit. Like, hey, we're gonna have this for you, but we want you to help make it better. Is that
Yeah.
is that what I'm hearing?
And that is of interest to them,
Yeah.
right? Folks who want to be a part of something that they have a part of creating.
Yeah.
And so the whole concept of the People's University is that our community are better experts at many things than we are,
Yeah.
right? And if we can give them an opportunity to help create the spaces that they can help us and teach people. People love teaching other people the things that they feel like they're experts at. And
Yeah.
I have not met one person who wasn't skilled in something beyond what they do for a living.
Yeah.
They have the little bit of expertise where it's playing tennis, playing golf, right, cooking, gardening, or whatever that they like sharing and because they're good at it.
Yeah.
And so the job of the People's University is to give them an opportunity to share that.
That's great. That's great. So one thing I wanted to ask too is, how do you bring people together, right? You've got a lot of different institutions, organizations, people with different interests, and what do you think works? How do you bring people together?
Well, I think one of the things though that folks, I think I always tell folks on the HR side, there are natural connectors, people who really just like connecting people together.
Yeah.
And that tends to be my personality.
Yeah.
And so that's also why I'm on all these boards
Yeah.
because I can't stop myself. I just like going and people ask me, if you want to do this, like I'm probably on too many boards already, but I like
Sure.
being around and connecting people to my organization, to other organizations. And
Yeah.
so, if you can, as a HR person or someone who, and you're looking for that type of director, that's going to be out there in the community, you look for someone who's already a natural connector because it's hard if you're not.
Yeah.
Um, but if you are that, aren't that, then you have to work on how to be better at doing that work. And I know a lot of people who are very, very good directors, and and it is one of those things that they just have to work at. One of the um, people who she ultimately became the director of the Spokane Public Library, um, but she was a introvert,
Hmm.
and I was always surprised when she would say that, I'm an introvert, or when we'd be doing like different things. But what she told me would be after she'd do a big event and get up and do a presentation or speak or meet a whole slew of people, she would take the whole weekend and just knit for 2 days straight, right? Recharge her battery, get herself back together, and get herself back so that she can come back on Monday and start doing it all again,
Yeah.
right?
That's. Oh, please go ahead.
No, so some of us get energized by that. Some of us it just takes it away from us, but anyone can do it, right? So even if you feel like, and I say this to young library folks who are like, I don't have that personality. I said, you can find that in you to be successful at it, and then you have to recharge ongoing. But there are a lot of really, really talented folks who are introverts who are very successful directors.
That's great. That's great. Um, so let me just ask you this generally. So, what benefits do you find that people experience when they decide to make the Cleveland Public Library kind of their community space, their third place? They tend to show up regularly. What kind of benefits do the patrons, do the members of the library, what do they receive? What do you tend to see?
So when I have conversations with folks, right, they are generally, it's a conversation of something that I would never imagine, right? Because if they're going to catch me as the director, they have a story that they're going to tell me. And one though, I was walking into a library, and the gentleman, like, he's walking and he had like four kids with him, and he stopped me and goes, "You're the director of the library, right?" And I was like, maybe. Right now, it's like, yeah, of course yes, of course I am.
Depends on what you're
Right.
saying next here.
Yeah, you never know what somebody's gonna tell you, but no, I said, yeah, no, I am.
Sure.
And he goes, "I just wanted to thank you." He goes, 6 months ago, my wife left me. I have with our four kids, and he goes, I had just lost my job.
Mhm.
And he goes, so every day I would come to the library. I would start like working on my resume, working on my applications, struggling just to make it. The children's librarians would make sure my kids were doing things to take care of themselves and make sure that they had something to go while I would be going out and doing interviews and things of that nature. And he said, 3 months ago, I got a great job. I'm able to take care of my kids and everything. And he started crying. He was crying while he was saying all of this. And, that's what you get out of it. You know, I tell my staff that when I was a librarian and worked on the desk and all of that, I was closer to it. So with those thank yous that people would get, I would get on a continual basis. And that's what charges you when you're in the library and you're doing that great work. You get those folks who tell you the job you're doing. And so every once in a while I'll get those. I don't get them as often, but I tell them I do this work so that they can get those kudos, and that they can see how much and appreciated the work that they do is by our community.
Yeah, it's wonderful. That's wonderful. Um, well, so just any last advice that you would give to a community space, a community, leader that is trying to get, more people to their space or more funding for community projects. I mean, just any kind of advice that you would want to give to one of those, kind of community leaders that's out there.
Yeah, I think any community leader who wants people to understand what their organization is doing has to be seeking relevance, right?
Yeah.
Because all of the folks are judging you kind of like a teenage child does you. Like my kids would sit around and list a number of the various stars or whatever, and they would go, Madonna, relevant, non-relevant,
Yeah.
so and so. And so by that time, Madonna wasn't relevant anymore as compared to many of these other folks. But our institutions become are put in that same kind of thing.
Mhm.
Libraries could have been relevant 20 years ago, but for some folks, they don't see them as relevant anymore.
Mhm.
And our objective always is to make sure that our community sees us as relevant. And what we do with the collections we have, the people we have, and the programming we do, and all of the things that we provide as far as technology is to make sure that we are seen as relevant in our community's lives. So, whatever organization that you are a part of or you're leading, you always want to make sure that people see the work that you do as relevant.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, yeah. So, for people that want to know more about you or about the Cleveland Public Library, where can they go? How can they learn more about it?
Certainly, we want everybody to go to cpl.org, find out more about the organization. You don't need to know more about me
Sure.
necessarily. And I know I talked a lot about me, but it is much more about the Cleveland Public Library and the fact that I've this wonderful organization's given me an opportunity to lead it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Felton Thomas, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the show and have a great one.
All right, thanks so much.
Yep.
Appreciated it.
Yep. See ya.